And yes, I had the equivalent of a lottery win, a large personal gift.
He knows what an ugly game it is, and he knows that if you expose a flank, you create a problem for yourself.
I am absolutely convinced that he has not broken the rules.
Yet another standards investigation is underway. Standards are now being used as a political tool.
I tell you why he's created a flank for himself. Because he is threatening all of the establishment, not just the Tory party.
For over 20 years now, I have been subject to constant demonisation by the press.
Not just the Labour Party, but the civil service, the big banks, the trade unions.
And I am the most physically and verbally attacked public figure or politician of modern times.
The entire establishment elite, it is the state rounding on an irritant.
I am going to need security for the rest of my life, and I cannot even tell you how grateful I am to Christopher Harborne.
With Burnham as the leader of the party, as the PM, they think that they've got a chance to challenge reform in these like red wall seats.
This is The Capitalist from CapX.
Gawain Towler, welcome to The Capitalist.
Very pleasant to be here.
We are speaking literally just after Nigel Farage's shock announcement of the fact that he is resigning as an MP to force a by-election in Clacton. So let's start with his passionate statement that he made there about all the issues that he's facing and his concerns about his threats to the family and so forth. Do you think he did a good job of putting his side of the case?
Oh, I think that was quite a resolute performance by Nigel. And it's the best thing for him to do. I know. He has spent his entire life in the political limelight, being on the edge of what is acceptable in public domain, on the outside the Overton window for much of it. And most people don't even know he's got children. There's a reason for that. I mean, there was one time, many, many years ago, that there was a story about one of his children. And the Mail on Sunday, which is not a paper you can convince once it's got its ideas ready, we're going to do a front page splash about his son. On his children. And I phoned them up and made it very clear he has never, not so much a photograph, nothing. He has done everything in his power to protect his children because he understands that he has put himself forward to be attacked, and so be it. You're a politician. That comes with the territory. But he understands that if he'd once used his kids as part of his politics, then it would be open season on them as well.
Yeah, and lots of politicians do. There's nice family
and look
photos.
what happens.
Yeah.
When Tony Blair used his kids for this purpose, when later in life Ewan did something dumb, it was everywhere. This is one of the pieces of advice that I learned from him, and I've given to every single member of the UKIP, Brexit Party and Reform. Do not use your kids, because you can protect them that way. And for when the Sunday Times printed a picture of his daughter's house, and then the Sun, the Sky and others went to beard them at their home, I have never seen him so angry as I saw him last night as he came off the plane. And it's clear that anger is not being driven into making him make foolish decisions. It is being channeled into a righteous anger. And he is quite correct.
Yeah.
Sky are in all sorts of trouble.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds like a clear breach of the code. Because it's a picture of the daughter's house, right? And
the picture of the daughter's house was in the Sunday Times. They may have made an error.
Yeah.
Well, there's plenty of errors in that article. I know plenty of reading it. Oh, yeah, that. Lots of errors. But they may have made another error in picking the wrong house. But nobody checked. The Sunday Times didn't check, and the broadcasters didn't check. Aren't they supposed to? Aren't they supposed to fact-check everything? They seem to try and fact-check us all the time. So, no, he is absolutely within his rights, and bring it on.
But, I mean, Farage is also, as you said, he's been a political operator for a long time. He's a very, very canny politician, one of the best of his generation, arguably, certainly in terms of his impact. He knows what an ugly game it is, and he knows that if you expose a flank, you create a problem for yourself.
Of course, but his children are not a flank.
No, but they're not about the children, but about the money. The donations that aren't declared, and he created the chance for people to do this.
Absolutely convinced, and I'm sure I'm prepared to bet he did have legal advice. He told us today that he had legal advice on those donations. I am absolutely convinced that he has not broken the rules. And he sometimes breaks the rules of good manners, as certain bureaucrats discovered to their cost, but he doesn't break that sort of rule. He has created a flank for himself. I tell you why he's created a flank for himself. Because he is threatening all of the establishment, not just the Tory party, not just the Labour Party, but the civil service, the big banks, the trade unions, the entire establishment elite. The teachers' union, 97% against him. We're going to spend teachers' money to attack reform. You name it, wherever you go. I've noticed that the chief executive on £206,000 a year, no less, the chief executive of Norfolk County Council stood down yesterday because he now has to face a reform council. And so on and so forth. We are taking on the establishment at every level and every aspect. And so, yeah, he's created a flank. He's created a flank by fighting for normal people in this country.
And now it seems like it was a kind of inevitability, but he's forced the issue on the by-election, which, and he's going to win, I assume.
I would be very surprised if he doesn't. There are, of course, in Clacton, there will be people who dislike him.
Yeah.
We live in a pluralist society, and nobody is loved. Nobody is loved in politics. Andy Burnham has a little bit of like at present, but I suspect that will pass as soon as he has to do governing.
Yes, his numbers are going down as people see him heading towards number 10.
So we understand that. We are in a pluralist. Very few people have 50% of their constituency. Nigel did, or pretty close. I suspect that we will win. But it's going to be hard work. By-elections are hard work. Trust me, I know.
Yeah. Well, Reform's had a couple of rough ones where they didn't come out with the result that they were hoping for, maybe, that they'd like. So this is a chance, perhaps, to turn that around and have a by-election where they end up winning.
I think there was, at Runcorn, there was complacency amongst others. We worked hard. Yeah. And we've got better at it since then. We worked very hard and overturn that particular apple cart. Since then, they have got less complacent. But the Gorton and Denton one, look at the demographics. We won everywhere we were going to win and lost everywhere we weren't going to win. Yeah. There was more places we lost than we won because of the demographics of the constituents.
Yeah. But Makerfield's perhaps more significant because that's sort of closer to the reform demographic.
It's much more target area. We did get 52% in May in the local elections in that constituency across the board. We won every seat in the council election.
Yeah.
But Labour were ready. Josh Simons, with his nice new job, the fellow who paid for dirt to be dug on journalists, he stands down. Labour are ready for him standing down. They know he's going to stand down. They've got all their ducks in a row. They have the data for decades. And they were prepared. We weren't. We had 4 days to pick a candidate. We were not ready. And we did as best we could. Yeah. And in fact, we got the largest vote for a right-wing party, therefore, ever. Therefore, whilst, of course, we'd like to win, but there are not 360 Andy Burnhams.
No.
There just aren't. And to be frank, if there's an early general election, you know what happens when somebody wins by-elections against the grain? And when the general election comes? It often reverts back to the party it was likely to go to.
Yes.
And I suspect Mr. Burnham might find keeping his seat and saving his seat in a general election, particularly as an early one, might be very hard indeed.
But of course that isn't the narrative that Labour have. Labour look at Makerfield and they say, finally we have a leader or an PM to be who can win in these constituencies. And they think even without Burnham as the candidate, with Burnham as the leader of the party as the PM, they think that they've got a chance to challenge reform in these like red wall seats. That's
Bring it on.
Theory, I know.
Bring it on. Yes, of course they do.
Yes.
They have been eating their own Kool-Aid, dried, powdered version, for an awfully long time, and they are desperate for any good news. That is the only piece of good news they've had since the election, I think. Yeah. And all the economic reality does not change. The fact they want to give the Chagos does not change. The fact that they want to double down on DEI does not change. The College of Policing report this week was terrifying. And so on and so on and so forth. political reality does not change. As Margaret Thatcher herself said, the facts of life are right-wing.
And you wrote for us.
And that is the case.
You wrote for us that the real bind that Burnham's in is that he has very little wiggle room on taxes. Not like he can suddenly put taxes up and spend more, really, because,
So what's he got? Because he can't change the economic reality, and he can't. And because we are winging our way to economic disaster, and we are, and tying ourselves to the European Union is not an answer to that, then what's he got left? How can he keep his restive backbenchers happy? All he can do is tinker with the Constitution. Let's have a number 10 in the North.
In 6 years' time or whatever.
Yeah, okay, so where do the diplomats go? They're all here. And so on and so forth. It's a stupid idea. A fundamentally stupid idea. Yes, we all like the idea of other parts of the country doing well. Of course we do. Levelling up and all the rest of it are fundamentally good things. However, politics is real. It has to be reality or it dies. So the constitutional tinkering, maybe bring in PR, another piece of constitutional tinkering to stop reform, I suspect. And the worst thing is the culture war red meat. I suspect because it's cheap, doesn't cost the government much, it just destroys society. So, because he can't really do anything with the economy, because his policies are counterintuitive to the markets, then all he's got to keep his restive backbenchers happy is to go hard on issues such as, the hunting ban thing, and this thing, and that thing, and the DEI, and no doubt the military, the vast increase, of spending, which he's got to find another 5 billion, good luck, will be spent on ensuring that our aircraft carriers do not have aircraft, but do have huge, great creches under the Plimsoll line. The whole thing is designed to really annoy your average voter, and therefore, and a lot of the average voters look at reform as a way forward. And this fight, people have said Nigel's been quiet recently. Ooh, I don't think so.
It certainly seemed on fighting form in that statement. But I suppose the question about the average voter, which all of this raises, I think we know that the passionate reform supporter sees all this and they understand it in a certain way. This is the establishment are out to get him and so on and so forth. But the question is, does all of this, which makes him the story and says a lot more about Nigel Farage than people have otherwise seen about, he's got these very rich friends, he's got these people with slightly questionable backgrounds that he's worked with and stayed with. Does that start to change his relatability to the general public, the ordinary voter?
My feeling is those people who have already in their hearts decided they're going to support reform are not going to be affected by this stuff.
No, exactly.
At all.
No.
Then you've got those people who actively hate us. And it's not going to change them, though it will supercharge their rage and the steam flying out of their ears. However, for the middle, many of whom are reform-minded, but they'll look at that. The whole point of this is a rolling barrage. Why are they pushing this thing till September? So they can leak and drip and leak and attack all through the summer. And it is like an artillery barrage on the first night of the Somme. You bombard the front line for month after month until you've broken the wire, until you've destroyed the morale. And that and only then is when you attack. And that is what they're doing. They are trying to break the morale of reform itself, but also, if you are an ordinary person, reform-minded, do you really want to go and move into an area that's under constant barrage from the establishment? It's an uncomfortable thing, but I think at the last election, it was merely true believers who voted for us, the 4.2 million. Since then, there's been a lot more join us, lots more. But I think that the one aspect that I don't think the establishment has actually factored into this campaign, this sort of barrage, this morale attack, this don't go with them because look at all this going on stuff, is there is a native sense of fair play in this country. People don't like hypocrisy. They don't mind error as long as the error is apologised for. They don't mind mistakes as long as they are owned. But they hate hypocrisy. And this is beginning to look like the entire machine is focusing on one man. And that doesn't feel like fair play. It ain't cricket. And I do believe quite strongly that much of that middle ground of which you talk, they may be concerned about some of this. And he's a bit fly, and he's got fly friends and all the rest of it. People, some of whom are close friends of mine, and decent people, but being portrayed in a very strange light. But I do think that the sense of fair play is absolutely fundamental to our country's self-image. It pre-exists democracy by a long way, that sense. And the idea that equality before the law, well, this is one of the things that Labour's been attacking. And that is fundamental to who we are. And so that, I think, a lot of those people who you might assume will be turned off by what's going on might just look at it and go, it is so transparent what the authorities are trying to do. That sense of fair play. And you have to look across, you can look across the Atlantic and a similar field.
Oh, sure, and Trump managed to brush it all off, although he is in some ways like a special case.
Well, he is
a sort of unique.
He is
unique
special.
Talent. Yes.
And special housing.
Special housing. But well, I suppose the question is which narrative wins, whether it's that one about the fair play or it's the gap between the public and the private. Farage
cannot
we
know
cannot
until they.
But another point that you raised there, is the sort of the focus on one man. And one of the problems that reform has had is
I would say
one-man.
In the past.
Yes.
You are correct, absolutely, and there's no doubt if they can take him out, that's what they're trying to do. They are laying this blanket barrage across the field, but they are targeting him because they were desperate for him to resign and not cause a by-election, but just to go. We've got him on the run. I have received text messages today from the press telling me that the Labour Party people are telling them that he's ill, he was having cancer treatment in America. I've had that stuff from the Tories before. They are trying to undermine him in every way they can, and they're trying to basically make him go, damn it, why am I doing this? I had an easy life, making lots of cash, having fun, and without this rubbish every day. But they do not understand the measure of the man. And actually, again, this is a very English response. You tell me I can't do something, well, I'm damn well going to do it. And that's, I think, so they've misunderstood that. And I think they've misunderstood the character of our nation. But if they'd taken him out, if I was Burnham, Labour, I was hoping to take him out. If they'd gone for a general election instantly, that would have knocked us down 10 points. But it can't be a one-man band when we came second in Wales and have destroyed Labour in Wales. We now hold, 30-odd seats in the Welsh Assembly. We came second or second equal in Scotland, 17 seats up there, 2,500 councillors, 34 councils that we run, and lots more where we are very influential. This is not a one-man band. This is a movement which he has led. And I think, I love it, Tories, it's a one-man band. Yeah, and we've got amongst that band, that is a one-man band, somebody that only recently was favourite to win the leadership of the Tory party. Not a one-man band.
They've got some real talent on the sort of the front bench now. They've got Suella, they've got Jenrick, they've got Zia Yusuf, they've got
Danny.
Danny Kruger, who's a very serious man. I mean,
was involved in this particular building.
Indeed, yeah. But there's a sense in which having Farage there keeps the rivalries between all of those strong personalities under control. And if he goes and then suddenly there's a civil war between all the people who are jockeying for position, that would necessarily be external pressure.
I think the external pressure will. The rocks on a rail track. They're all misshaped rocks. They're not pebbles. And there's a reason for this, because the misshapes lock together when there's external pressure, provides stability. And I think the external pressure from the other parties, there may be fissures and cracks between the individuals because they're human. And that is the case for all of us. And in every walk of life, there are those fissures and cracks between individuals. But that external pressure, I think, will force them together rather than break them apart.
Yeah, I guess we
will see. But and I've noticed that internally.
Yes.
There have been a couple of bits and pieces, but
strong personalities.
By and large, it pulls them together. There's been a huge amount. I mean, everybody, oh, Robert Jenrick, he's not disciplined. Actually, he's been hugely disciplined internally. He really has.
Yeah.
And so on and so forth. So, whilst it is something that is, I guess, worth a column in a newspaper, I don't think it's actually got any legs.
Yeah. What about the struggle with Restore, which is something that came up in Makerfield and we haven't talked about yet? I mean, that's something that Reform's got to work out how to handle going forward, whatever happens in Clacton, whatever happens with Burnham.
Oh, I know. I believe that Mr. Lowe has said he's going to destroy Farage. He's going to campaign hard in Clacton. Carry on.
Yeah, well, I mean, in Clacton, I don't see it necessarily, but nationally...
There is no point in us getting excited about it. It is what it is. And I don't... Here's your government and all the elections and everybody that we have to deal with, the Tories, Labour, Lib Dems, the Greens, yada, yada, yada. And there's Restore.
Yeah.
I think our focus should be here rather than here. It exists. It has every right to exist. Nobody has a right, nobody owns another person's vote. No party has the possession of something that is intrinsic to the individual. So people can do what they wish. And that is right in a democracy.
Yeah.
But for us to focus on the 4% or the 3% rather than on the main parties is silly and strategically daft.
Well, I suppose it depends whether there are constituencies where that starts to become the difference between winning and losing. And
I think, and as was shown at the Makerfield by-election, they were convinced they were going to get 10, 15, 20, to win it.
Yeah.
In many cases. Their senior figures that were out to win. What do they get? 3, 4, something like that. Frankly, I think their voters, even if they are minded to think that Restore is the purity option, and that you have that constant refrain, if I'm in politics, I would like 60% of our agenda to get through. I will not worry. In fact, I'd be delighted if 60% of our agenda got through. I'm not going to die on a hill for 100% and get nothing. And I think a lot of the people who voted, who were considering voting Restore, will internally tactically vote. Okay, so we have a choice: Reform or Labour. What would be better for our country? And I suspect the majority of people who have sympathies with Restore and sympathy for that purist ideal will go, nah, I can't. So I don't think formal tactical voting, but I do think people will internalise tactical voting, and it happened absolutely in Makerfield, and it happened absolutely in Gorton, where it wasn't Restore then, it was Advance with pulling up those with a Nick Buckley who'd got 9% as an independent from Manchester Mayor. He was almost beaten by the Monsters at about 170 votes. He thought. And he'd got 9, 10, 11% in that constituency. He came from that constituency. He thought he was going to get... But the people who may have supported him, again, looked, Greens, no, and voted for us. So I think people internally tactically vote because they look at the situation and go, yeah, no.
what about the Manchester mayoralty? Obviously, with Burnham moving on, that's up. Does
yes, I know.
have
It was
a shout? Are they fighting
very,
hard?
very cheap for the taxpayer, wasn't it?
Yes.
Getting Andy Burnham elected as the Prime Minister. What was it, 5,250,000 so far?
Yeah, well...
Just to get him to where he is now. It's a lot of money.
Yeah.
And what's more, the taxpayers pay for that.
Yes. Well, I suppose the taxpayers are going to be paying for a new by-election in Clacton now, but it's not quite as bad as the mayoralty.
Quite the same thing, is it? But it's not 5 million. And we've got an excellent candidate, local businesswoman. I suspect the focus will switch from Manchester to Essex.
Yes.
Just because of the news agenda. It shouldn't. Right now, it shouldn't, but I can see why it will.
Do you think there's a temptation with, say, in Manchester?
And of course, in Manchester, they've changed the rules, haven't they? They've changed another time. They've changed the rules.
Change, yes. In these northern seats and in places like Manchester, reform, like facing off against Burnham, who's becoming more popular, might need to become more.
And not is he? He's actually becoming less popular.
Well, it's more popular than Starmer, let's say.
Well, that's not hard.
Oh yeah, it's a low bar. But
that book is probably more. This is probably more popular than Starmer. I don't even know what it does.
No. Whether reform might need to become a bit more economically left-wing to be competitive with Burnham, and whether that's something that should worry people who care, like at CapEx, care a lot about the
I think that there are We are not ideologues in a traditional sense. I don't think we are ideologues in a traditional sense, and actually a pragmatic right-of-centre party is a sensible thing. If you are ideological pure, again, it's the purest thing. If you go down your purest line, then you don't get to be in a position to do anything. And I think that there are certain things, particularly, for example, the industrial aspect of steel, and our inability to defend ourselves properly unless we have our own industry. And it's interesting, isn't it? The people who bought our industry and then closed it down. Couldn't be our enemies, could it? Oh yes, so it is. So there are key things there. I do think as we go forward, that one has to look at the support for, though not necessarily state-funded, support for some level of sovereign AI, sovereign in the digital space. We're not going to create a competitive LLM model with AI, but we certainly have the capacity to do clever things around it and provide excellent stuff. We still produce some bright people in this country, and we should be supporting them. What we don't seem to be able to do is scale. Idea, development, American comes in and buys it. And that is a problem we have, and we need to address that. The founders, what we used to call entrepreneurs, and now seem to be called founders. But they need a level of moral support, if not financial support. And you do that by improving the tax regime. You do that by there's all sorts of things you can do without state funding. If you were to cut, for example, and something I'd like to have, but it's not policy, if you were to cut, say, corporation tax by 50%, is that a form of state subsidy? i.e., instead of giving them money, you're stopping taking money off them. Some people would say that was a state subsidy. I don't know. Or at least they could perceive it as such. So yes, I think the state can do things that doesn't involve taxing people more, that helps those things that we desperately need to help to step up and address. Anybody who has a political policy that doesn't factor in the impact of AI, they may as well walk back to the 19th century, and it's a place I like. But it's.
Well, that was also a time of frenetic technological change.
It was the white heat. It wasn't the white heat of industry, and it really was the white heat of industry, not the Wilsonian version.
No. Right.
Just look at Joseph Wright of Derby's paintings. You want to see the white heat of entrepreneurship and technology. But no, I think there are things we can do as a nation. There are, in fact, levers we can pull, despite what every government minister seems to say. But that takes will. That takes serious will. And if you want to see will, go back and look what that broadcast was today. That does suggest a chap with a backbone.
With a backbone,
There aren't the backbones around here are more Haribo than titanium. But that does suggest a chap with a backbone, and that is why he just keeps on going. But it's also something I just don't understand. I just don't understand why the establishment keep on underestimating him. It's decades now. Surely they should have learnt by now. But they don't seem to. They don't seem to. So we shall see.
We shall see. This has been a great conversation, Gawain. Thank you so much. I just want to finish on a technical thing you were talking about earlier, which is about whether there's going to be another by-election, because, as you said, they've pushed back now.
They've pushed back the committee.
Just explain this for listeners.
Well, okay, so Nigel has launched, he's resigned his seat, he's close. I suppose he's got to go to the Chiltern Hundreds first, doesn't he? Go off to Buckinghamshire for a couple of days and then back again. The steward. He's resigned his seat, forced a by-election. We will find out the timetable soon, and it's a timetable controlled by Reform, because that's how the process works. Then we were told, and it was intimated, that the Parliament's Standards Committee was going to report this week. And they would probably suspend him for 10 days, because it's an opportunity to take a pop at him. And then they've delayed that till September, which means he fights by-election, he wins a by-election, and it's entirely possible that the Standards Committee say, aha, we have another chance. In September, no doubt during reforms conference, so it's just to muck us about. They will announce that he has failed the standards committee. He's suspended for 10 days. A recall petition is allowed, and so we might have 2 by-elections.
2 by-elections. Goodness.
And I suspect if we have the second, Farage reform will win the second 50, 60, 60%. I really do, because that good nature, it looks like cheating. It looks like underhand behaviour. It is the state rounding on an irritant. And you do not crush a Farage on a wheel.
Gawain Towler, thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed.